Hey, Professor K here, and today we're going to talk about how to make mockups in Adobe XD from our style boards. Now, in our last video, what we did was we put together a style board based on a look and feel that we wanted for the recipe for disaster example. And I wanted something kind of sassy and fun, so I used a comic book style illustration. A couple of things to note before we get into this tutorial are some things that I've done in the background to speed this up a little bit. So one thing to know is that I went to Google Fonts, and one of the first things I did was just downloaded this font family bangers that I decided on, as well as Roboto. Those are my two main font families. All you have to do is download them, and inside your downloads, when you go to open this up, you're just gonna go and double click and then open with Font Book and install. That will get the font installed for you. The other thing that I did was I selected some photos that would really help me out and kind of figured out where they belonged in my content. So I probably spent like a good half hour to an hour just researching like comic book vectors. All I did was search for comic book style illustrations, and one of the main sites that came up was Vecteezy. I just looked through here and found a style that I really liked. And when I found an illustration I really liked, what I did was I went to the artist's name and I just clicked and took a look at their other work. And this particular artist is really matching the style that I want. I really like their style. So all I did was I just went through and picked out like 5 images that would really work well for my content. From there, all I did was I copied and pasted them into my Google Doc alongside my content. This helps me remember exactly which images go best with which content. So that'll help me down the line when I'm actually going to code. I did the same thing in Adobe XD. I actually put those images over to the side here so that I would have them available for my mockup. So now that you know where I'm at, a couple of things that I've done just to start with are picked out some colors, a color palette to start with. You can make your own color palette by using the rectangle tool, just drawing out a nice square. Hold down Shift if you want it to be square instead of a rectangle. And then over here, whenever anything's selected in Adobe XD, always look to the right for your properties just to see what contextual features come up. So here we can see there's fill, border, all kinds of appearance stuff. Here I'm just going to take off the border because it's a little distracting. And under fill, I'm going to click the eyedropper icon and then just take it off the photo. So I based my color palette off this illustration because I really liked the colors in there. And you can choose either to use the colors straight off in Illustration or modify them on your own in Photoshop. I'm leaving them as is for now. So one of the things that I like to do as part of my process is just to kind of rough things out in the mobile view and get a sense of the colors first and then work my way up to typography. So I decided I wanted to start out with a really big, bright, bold area. So I chose this red color. And then in going through my ingredients and thinking about the design for those, I'd initially started out with, and I'll just do it over here so I can show you an example, this repeat grid. I tried to double click, just like I normally do, to edit things. And let's see if we can get this to work. I'm going to hit the eyedropper tool, I on your keyboard. That shortcut will give you this kind of picker, and you can just click on anywhere. I'm going to use the orange. So one thing you'll notice is that because we're in a repeat grid, it's editing everything. To avoid that, you can just click this and then use this ungroup grid. That will make everything individually editable. You don't really need the repeat grid at this point anyway because we've already put in all our content in wireframes. So now you can get to the individual like pixel level editing. In any of these grid items, just keep double clicking until you only see the one highlighted. So see how this is a little different from this, and then double click a third time from just that shape. That's what you want to get to, is the shape itself. Hit I, grab the orange, and now you can see it's just editing that. So that's where I'm at. There's some things that I'm not in love with here. The borders are a little harsh, but overall the color's starting to look good. And where I'm at this point is, how do I get images in over here? So what I want to do is just take a look at my Google Doc and see what was my plan for images, what was my plan for content. So I really liked this woman shouting as the first image up here. I'm just going to go and grab that from way over here. Just going to copy it and then paste it right in. And I'm just going to put this right over that, and you can see, wow, I almost nailed the aspect ratio. You can send this to the back just like any other Adobe program by doing Shift, Command, and then left square bracket. And we're just going to delete this, and now we have a much more realistic feeling mockup here. I'm going to do this very quickly for the next couple of bullet points. And it looks like I actually put this in the wrong place. This should really be up here. So how can we fix this? We can just go like this, and I'll click this down. And now we have just 2 there. So what did I want for 2? Just this guy giving an OK sign. We'll show this one more time. Copy, zoom right in, paste there, scale it down. You can either hold or not hold the Shift key. Either one's fine. So that's the basics of placing images in Adobe XD. I'm not going to bore you with the details. What I will show you is kind of a finalized version at the end of this of what I ended up making this look like through my design process. So instead of focusing on colors and doing more of this, let's pretend that I got a little farther in this. In the interest of keeping the video short, I want to show you how to edit text now. So here, we're going to try editing the title text. And what I would encourage at this point is start thinking about the relationship between your text and then start making some guesses at some CSS properties you might be using to style things. And I know you haven't learned CSS yet. That's okay. Take your best guess. Look at the phrasing of what's in Adobe XD. Look at the phrasing of vocabulary you've used throughout your time as a designer and up through this class. A lot of it actually matches with CSS. So if you start training yourself to think, okay, so in CSS, I'm going to use color for this. I'm going to use text shadow for this. I'm going to use font face for this. If you start getting in the habit of thinking of those things while you're designing, you're going to have a much better time actually executing on your design. So now that we're kind of thinking in that way, let's think about how we can make our titles consistent across each of our mockups here. One option that we have is called character styles. Character styles behave a lot like our H1 tags, H2 tags, paragraph tags in HTML. It's a certain set of styles that's meant to be applied consistently across multiple pages or devices. So for example, let's make ourselves a heading character style. If you click the plus sign here, you're going to get a character style based on whatever's currently selected. So I'm going to do that again. Command Z to undo, select the title, and then under character styles, plus. That gives us a new character style. Let's rename this to heading 1, title, just to help us remember. And it looks like I spelled that wrong. T-I-T-L-E. There we go. So whenever you have a character style, one of the first things you should do is apply it to everything that it might affect. So here, we want this to be the same across our phone, tablet, and small desktop. All we have to do is select all 3 and click. And now if we go and click here, these are all going to be using that same character style. Why do we want to do that ahead of time? Because now when we go to edit our character style, and you might remember this from working with InDesign. This is actually really similar to working with InDesign and character styles there. Once we change a character style in one place in Adobe XD, it will update everywhere else. So let's set this to bangers and check that out. It updated across all of them. Now I want this to be really big, bold type. So I'm just gonna start kind of messing with this type size and see what I can do to get it looking nice across all 3. So 90 is still too big. Let's try 70. I want something, ooh, that's perfect. I want something with like big impact on the title. And we can always work our way up. If we want a larger title up in the desktop, we can always add more there. But let's start with this for now. I think I want something like really comic booky feeling for this to really play off of this character style. So when I think of comic books, what kinds of visual design ideas do I think of? I think of like bold colors, I think of like text shadow, I think of borders, you know, something that creates like a lot of like literal pop, right? Let's try playing with that here and see if we can get this to work across all 3. So here, I want to create a lot of contrast. I'm gonna start by just changing this fill to white. Easy peasy. First thing that I can do to create lots of contrast is send the contrast way out to the other side of things. The next thing that really came to mind when I was talking through what a comic book style looks like is a drop shadow. Now this is gonna be a really subtle drop shadow to begin with, and that's fine, I don't mind that, but I want something harsher here. So the default shadow, to change it, you just click on the color and notice you have this transparency slider. I don't actually want it transparent. I want something with like a lot of harshness to it. I'm gonna bump it all the way up, and then instead of having a blur, the B value here, I am going to turn that down to 0 so that it has like a really harsh line to it. See how that almost immediately looks more comic booky? You can even play with this further by adding a border. This is going to be an outline in CSS, so that's how you would do this in CSS. We might play with different fill types, like what's it look like if you, oh, that's like kind of interesting. This is like a good time to just play and see what can I do with this. You know, we could try different colors. I actually really liked the relationship of the black on black here. Sometimes this can actually look really cool with a really bright border. That looks like maybe a little too much. We could increase the size. That's kind of interfering with the type, so I don't love that. We could also increase the shadow, the Y value, by bumping that up or bumping the X value up. Notice how that takes it further out. This is actually the same in CSS. This is very similarly structured. When you go to write the CSS rule, a text shadow rule, it will come in the form of an X value, a Y value, and a blur value. So it's really cool how Adobe XD actually kind of mirrors CSS in that way. So always be thinking of that. Have CSS in the back of your mind. You know, what's it look like? Oh, this is cool. So this is my favorite part, is just experimenting and seeing, you know, what do I like when I play around with this? What am I like really digging? So I actually really like this setup here. This is kind of like a fun play. And if maybe the red doesn't feel as good now. Maybe I want like a blue or something like that. Or, ooh, you know what would look good? No, not an orange. I don't know. Sometimes you just gotta kind of play around with it and see what you end up liking best. Let's see if the orange looks any better. Blue and orange is like a really classic complementary pairing. We could also try it with an orange background. Even yellow's not bad. And then a blue shadow too. Or you may even decide to do your own thing. I think I really like the high contrast best. Not the red and yellow, that's too much, but I'm feeling this. This feels good. Now, what's the last thing that we could do to this title to really make it feel comic booky? I think playing with the positioning and the angle would make it feel more like a real comic book font. So you can do this one of two ways. You can use this handle here to rotate, or you can use the rotate over here. Now, as you rotate, right, keep this terminology in mind. What does this remind you of in Adobe programs? And just think about that for a minute. What does this kind of like handle in the box, what would you call that in an Adobe program? If you thought transform, right? Transform in Photoshop, that's how you make things bigger or smaller. That's how you rotate them. That's how you maybe move them across the page. You're totally right. You're absolutely right. Transform is the key word for that. And that's the keyword that you're going to keep in mind for CSS. Anytime you do a transform in Photoshop, you're going to do a transform in CSS. So this is a transform of the type rotate. And we are just going to rotate it roughly on the same angle that it was at before. And I am even going to scale this up a bit. So let's see if I can figure out how to do that here. It's not Command T. Let's see if we can find a transform. So edit. Did you see how I did that? When I don't know where something is in an Adobe program, I'm always looking in this help menu for transform, and it'll show you right where it is. So it's under object, transform. Oh, look at that. You only have flip horizontally and vertically. Oh, you know what? It's because it wants to use the text size for a transform. So you would have to up the text size. So let's play with the positioning of this. I like this. This is fun. Here, going back to our character styles, let's think about, this is like our body copy, right? So maybe we want to use like a body character style. Let's go ahead and add based on that. We're going to rename this to paragraph, and then we're going to edit. Oh, you know what? Before we edit it, why don't we go ahead and just select everything, zoom way out, and shift click to select all our paragraphs so that we don't forget that this is all going to be the same body copy. We can all change them right at once. Okay, so select paragraph. Awesome. Now when we edit that, it's going to apply everywhere. So here we're going to edit. And remember that I wanted to do Roboto. I'm going to keep it at 18. That's a good base font size. This is the line height here, 27. Now I like to set my body copy around 1.5 times the font size. So let's see what 18 times 1.5 is. Oh, 27. So perfect. Adobe's got it all covered for me. You don't have to change that at all. And now what you'll see is that each of these paragraphs is using Roboto. So we're in great shape. And you know, I might even, we don't have a duplicate here, huh? But what I could do is highlight this and do a plus, and I would have a new one for 84 point. Edit this, and let's say that I want this to be an H2. So let's think about what an H2 might look like on a page. I'm gonna try 60 point font and see what that looks like. So over here, I'm just gonna, oh, look at that. You know what I need to do? I changed my font size and like my style and stuff like that. So actually I want this to be heading 1, title. I'm gonna get rid of this because it's not like what I wanted anymore. I'm just gonna hop over and apply these as well. Okay, so heading back over to these. This is an H2, right? So let's make an H2 next. We're gonna do this and let's see. Let's do a different way. Let's copy this. And then let's try pasting appearance. Check that out. We got all the fill and the border with this. And now what we can do is, let's see if we can add reveal character style and assets. So this is using H1 title. I wonder if we can make like a new character style. We could say this is going to be different because we're going to put it at 40. And now we have that ungrayed again. 40 actually doesn't feel bad. Let's do 50. Nah, 45. And what I want to see is I want to see a less harsh shadow here. So I'm going to go 2 and 2. I'm going to make it half the size, 1, 2. And I could even think about taking off the shadow here. It might be too much, you know, and just leaving it with the fill. So let's see what we like here off our color palette. What's looking good? Oh, I like the contrast of that red there. I'm going to stick with that. All right, so under character styles, rename, heading 2. And if you didn't go through and select everything at first, not to worry. All you have to do is do that at this point, and we can do ingredient and directions, select heading 2, and now they're all looking good. So very quickly, I'm just going to go through and set this down to, I'm going to need a little bit more space than that. I can tell because of the size there. So I'm going to go down to like 25, 27. Let's see what 27 looks like. I kind of eyeball these as I go. You can also do this in browser. Sometimes I prefer to do it in browser when I have more content. All right, so rename, heading 3. You get the idea, right? And we are just going to Apple click and shift click all of these and apply the heading 3. And we did lose the fill on that, which is a little bit of a bummer, but you know what's easy enough to do? Just put it back, right? Use our eyedropper tool, and let's start up from the top. The red was a yellow. This one was an orange. This was red. This was blue. We're gonna skip black because that's our background color, yellow, and orange. And you can see here, this is already starting to look like a real mock-up. Now, it kind of depends on your level of comfort and familiarity with CSS, but one thing that I like to do is get the rough draft out in XD and then start coding immediately. If you aren't as comfortable with code yet, and you're probably not because you're just starting out in this class, you're probably going to want to work through these mockups a little bit more thoroughly. But I would recommend at least getting your type, color, and placement roughly in place. And from there, you can choose to make your code your working prototype and go with that. Or you can finish out your mockups and then work directly off those. And I think for this, I'm just going to put this, I'm really digging this image. I'm going to put her in the background under Recipe for Disaster. Oh, you know what? So see how that kind of moment there feels really good? It's because we're doing like a little bit of overlapping. So anytime you like kind of break the grid in a web design, it just feels really good. Let's see what this looks like with a background. Can we do like a background in here? I'd really like to do that. Ooh, you can change appearance and stuff like that. No, because it wants to do the fill on just like the text. So I would have to drag out another square and then rotate and put it behind. Send to back. And that's kind of an interesting idea. Actually, I really like that. So notice how as we explore this design and kind of work through it, sometimes playing with overlapping, sometimes playing with things going off the canvas a little bit makes it feel a little bit more active. Draw back on those intro to design lessons that you learned and push things off the canvas. Try playing with the layout a little bit. Try playing with things and angling them. You could even try this shadow. again, is going to work very similarly. Instead of a text shadow, this is going to be using a box shadow in CSS. So there is a little bit different approach to it, but it's the same sort of idea in that you'll have a Y offset like this and an X offset. So that's back and forth horizontally, back and forth vertically, to get it to have that like really poppy sort of feel. Again, you may find yourself just noodling with this for a while. You may not get everything pixel perfect, and that's okay. Do your hard work in CSS in the browser. Get it like pretty close on a mockup, but the browser is where it eventually lives, so that's where you're eventually going to want to do your work. So I'm going to leave it there for now with this mockup. I don't want to kind of take up too much of your time, but that should give you the basic idea of how to get started inside Adobe XD and how to get working with your mockup. Now keep in mind that you are going to have to apply your changes to the tablet and the desktop sizes. If that seems like a lot of work, it's because it is. If you don't feel like you have to do all that to figure out your design direction, you don't have to. Go ahead and start trying to code from the mobile up and work on and focus on your layout and your placement. Things like colors and stuff, you can work that out in one mockup and then move immediately to the browser. We're not presenting this to anyone. We're not presenting this to clients. You can kind of just iterate, get as far as you need to in XD to understand what you're doing, and then start trying to code and flip back and forth between them if you need to. You can even pop open, and I'm actually just gonna pop over to my screen sharing for a little bit for something that I do quite often. You can even pop over to CodePen or Popcode. Let's do Popcode. And you can try out using things in CSS. So why don't I just I call this a proof of concept. Why don't I just do a quick proof of concept for my title? So title/h1, I need my HTML. And then over here, and again, we're gonna learn more about this in CSS. You're gonna learn more about how to actually use these in later lessons, but just to show you kind of like a preview of what's coming up, I can use this import URL in my CSS and then write a rule. And you know what? I'm going to use a class here to style. Class equals recipe-title, nice and specific, .recipe-title, font-family, bangers, sans. I want this to fall back to a sans serif. I don't want it to just choose any display font, it feels like. And we remember, oh, there we go, looking good. We remember our font size. I believe that was roughly 84 pixels. I'm just going to rough that out here. And then remember the words that we used while we were mocking this up, right? Words from Adobe, transform, color, rotate. Those are all going to come into play here. So again, just roughing this out, I'm going to do a color of red, and I'm going to do a transform, right? Just like in Adobe. Rotate. What kind of transform am I doing? And then again, just roughing this out, let's say it's 20 degrees. Oh, whoops, wrong way. Let's do -20 degrees. See, that's the fun of this, is you can just play with it and get it right? And then text shadow, right? Using the same kinds of terminology we learned in our Adobe programs. Let's say X value 3 pixels, X value 3 pixels, and then black as our final value. The color, there's no blur. So same deal. There's like a 0 there that's just not showing. You could even just kind of play with this value. And notice how this is just as fast as working in Adobe XD if you happen to know all the CSS values off the top of your head. So anytime you're ready to just dive in and start prototyping your CSS out, you can move from your design program over to this. So if you want to try something out, you want to see if something's possible, open up Popcode, just give it a try, right? There's absolutely nothing stopping you. So with that, we're going to give it a try with our recipe. Basically a mock-up, just get your styles roughed out, get like a good design direction going, and then start trying to build it as soon as you reasonably can. Even if it's just like working out the layout, working out what your typefaces are, start making some progress on that. Let's see how far we can get with this. So I hope that was helpful. Hopefully that gives you some good insight into my personal design process, which is pretty fluid. There's a lot of bumping back and forth between XD, Popcode, or another online editor, and actually working in production level code. So that's going to be in Glitch for you and VS Code for me. You'll eventually get to VS Code. That's how you can rapidly iterate and get something working real quick. So with that, I will see you in class soon. See you later.